At the beginning of the story, we see a tall, strong man in prison engaging in a slapping match with other inmates. This man appeared quite powerful, but as soon as his opponent, Sheik, slaps him, he falls flat on his back. After this, Sheik considers himself the most powerful prisoner in the prison, as no one was willing to face him after seeing his strength. But then, suddenly, from among the crowd of prisoners, a thin, innocent-faced boy named Hansu steps forward to compete. Seeing him, all the inmates begin to mock him. Everyone thought this boy would blow away with just a blow, yet he still comes to the match. However, Hansu is not afraid of Sheik at all, and is ready for the fight. And yes, Hansu is no ordinary boy, as we will learn more about him later. Anyway, Sheik and Hansu, music, play stone, paper, scissors to land the first slap. But Hansu loses, and the one who gets the first slap is so hard that he's completely knocked out. But he still stands firm, and now it's his turn. Hansu music uses all his strength to land a hard, powerful blow on Sheik's face. But Sheik doesn't seem to mind. The fight continues, music, until one of them gives up. But finally, Hansu cheats and attacks Sheik with a punch instead of a slap, music, causing Sheik to fall to the ground. Meanwhile, a prisoner watching the match catches Hansu cheating, which he takes great pleasure in. Meanwhile, Sheik, after being beaten by a child, gets into a scuffle. His disciples standing nearby also attack Hansu. Hansu is cleverly fighting them alone when the guards arrive and stop them and put Hansu in the cell for assault. After a while, Han approaches him and explains that he's new here, so he shouldn't mess around. The person he beat up today is a very dangerous prisoner, so he should be careful. After that, Han leaves. The next morning, a prisoner tells Hansu that Sheik and his gang won't try to mess with him again because Han has warned them not to attack Hansu, even by mistake. Hansu asks who Han is. The prisoner tells him that Han makes the rules in this prison and is its leader. In fact, not only the inmates but also those outside fear him because he is the boss of a massive mafia gang. His power in this prison, music, comes not from his outward appearance but from the fights organized by the jailer, Music himself, the victor of which rules. Han has never lost a single fight, so no one has ever dared to challenge him. He lives here not as a prisoner but as a king, and no one can touch anyone he controls. But after a few months, the atmosphere changes completely. A new inmate, Kim, arrives, a man even more terrifying, Music, than Han. Kim's entry strikes fear among all the inmates. Even the mere mention of his name makes many look down. Music Han, hearing of his arrival, approaches him and offers to work with him in the prison cigarette business. Music. In reality, Han wasn't afraid of him, but for two reasons. First, his sentence was almost over and he didn't want to fight. Second, he understood his enemy and their traps well. Then he revealed his true form. But Kim wasn't interested in his offer. Just then, Han's man brought him the bad news. His most important man had been captured. Han quickly rushed to him and found the jailer beaten to death. This meant the jailer was now in league with Kim. Seeing this, Han became enraged, but the jailer ordered the guards to have Han severely beaten, eventually putting him in prison. After spending a few days in prison, Han emerged from the dungeon in a very bad condition. But then we saw Sheik, who had once been afraid of Han. Today, he attempts to kill Han, but Hansu suddenly sees him attacking and saves Han's life by pushing him away. The jailer then arrests them both and asks Hansu if he has any proof that Sheik attacked Han. The jailer knew everything, but he wanted to save Sheik at Kim's behest. After a while, Hansu visits Han in his cell, where Han asks him, "Why did you save my life?" Hansu replies that he never hesitates to help people because his mother taught him to do so. This response strengthens their bond. The next day, the two go directly to the jailer. Yusu tells him that he needs to report the smuggling that has been rampant in the jail for several days. Yusu says that he has proof of this, and the jailer is shocked. Han himself had instructed Hansu to tell the jailer. The jailer was clearly visible in the photo. Seeing this, the jailer slaps Hansu. Khan retaliates by slapping him and threatening him, saying that if his men send these photos to the investigation committee, the jailer will be the first to face questions and lose his position. After being deeply embroiled, the jailer finally sides with Han. Music. Upon hearing this news, Kim's condition began to deteriorate. Han, seizing the opportunity, imprisoned Kim and Sik in the prison kitchen and began torturing them. Finally, Sik, overcome with fear, broke down and revealed the truth. He revealed that a man named Manchol Music was behind all this, who was actually Han's boss. Music had ordered him to be eliminated. In return, Manchol had offered him a 1/3 share of the prison's smuggling. Han was shocked and enraged after learning of his own betrayal. Music. He, however, is terrified by the ferocious appearance of Han Suhan and tries to maintain his composure so as not to reveal his true identity. The scene then flashes back Music, revealing a significant secret. Fusu, who we thought was a prisoner, is actually an undercover officer. Music, whose mission is to befriend Han, gain his trust, and help him catch his gang, which, Music, is it's a dangerous mission. Hansu's chief officer, Insuk, is a ruthless officer who takes her job very seriously. She's willing to go to any lengths to solve the case. She promises Hansu that if he succeeds, she will arrange a kidney donor for his ailing mother, who needs a kidney to survive. Hansu agrees to undertake such a dangerous mission for his mother. The scene shifts to Hansu having completely gained Han's trust. Meanwhile, Hansu receives a call from Insuk, who informs him that a donor has been found for his mother. She reminds him of his mission and urges him to complete it. A short while later, Han is visited by his boss's nephew, Byung, Music. He is a friend of Han's and harbors a deep hatred for his uncle because he once beat him up up in public. Byung has learned that his uncle wants to kill Han, music. Therefore, Byung now joins Han in wiping out his entire mafia. Han joins him, music, but with extreme caution, knowing full well that the members of his gang are not loyal to anyone, music. He even suspects Hansu, whom Han had previously asked Byung to investigate, music, but he couldn't find out anything significant about her. Hansu, on the other hand, is overjoyed that his mother will finally recover. But music, his happiness is short-lived. The next moment, he learns that his mother has been in an accident and has left Hansu, music. This news leaves Hansuk utterly devastated. Khan too is distraught to see him so broken. After regaining his composure, Hansuk calls Insuk and begs her to release him from prison for a day so he can attend his mother's funeral, as her mother was everything to him. However, Insuk, as we know, is a ruthless woman, and her mission comes first, so she flatly refuses. Hansuk continues to cry before her, but she refuses. Finally, Hansuk threatens to tell Han everything if he isn't released, but Yosuk counters by saying that if he does, his police record will be expunged, and he will rot in prison as a criminal. Kyonsu couldn't have imagined that his chief was such a vile officer. Kyonsu was so angry that when Han came to him to try to ease his pain, he first told Han to leave, but when he wouldn't, he started a fight with Han. He started beating him. Han didn't want to raise his hand on Hansu, but he was forced to do so, and somehow calmed him down. The next day, the jailer unexpectedly granted Hansu a day's release under police supervision for his mother's funeral, which pleased him a bit. This release was arranged not by his chief, but by Han, who bore all the expenses. With Han's help, Hansu was able to see his mother for the last time, and perform a grand funeral. After returning to jail, Han and Hansu had a long conversation that night. Hansu learned about Han's troubled past, which had led to his becoming a gangster. Han, like his younger brother, teaches Hansu not to trust anyone too easily. Han then asks Hansu if he would like to become his junior after his release. Yunsu was deeply moved by her words, thinking that on one hand, her chief, who only thinks about herself and is using her, Han, the pure-hearted man who arranged her last meeting with her mother, is deceiving her. Finally, Yunsu reveals the truth. He is an undercover agent working with a secret agency to eliminate her and her gang. The story then moves forward a few months, and finally the day arrives when Hansu is about to be released from prison. Upon leaving prison, Hansu sees several bodyguards and a luxurious red music car in front of him, inside which sits Han, who had been released a few months earlier and had come to pick Hansu up. That is, now, he's not an undercover agent, but a music he's done with Han. That night, Han takes him to a lavish party where Hansu meets Han's boss Manchol for the first time. Manchol takes a liking to Hansu and his style and immediately recruits him into his gang, assigning him the task of smuggling music. However, Byung becomes slightly irritated by this and tries to intimidate Hansu. Byung had no idea that instead of being afraid of him, Hansu would point his gun at him, and that this very attitude led Manchol to immediately include music in his gang. Well, Han calms him down, but Manchol becomes enraged by Byung's behavior and gives him a couple of music spankings in front of everyone. However, the next day, Manchol calls Byung and tells him that he will never take his place, but he must eliminate Han after the next deal. Manchol senses that Han doesn't see him as his boss, but rather as the gang's boss, and wants to eliminate him before Han ends up killing him. Manchol explains that to get the goods through the checkpoint, they need a stamp from a gangster named Joy, who is a wicked man. Music. Then, Pangkan and Hansu arrive at Joy's hideout to obtain the stamp. Meanwhile, the police are monitoring their every move, as Hansu is still in contact with Insuk. This suggests that he's still on a mission, and his friendship with Han is merely a sham, and that he had a tracking device installed in his watch. Inside, Yosuk tries to buy a stamp from Joy, but Joy refuses. Music. An enraged Yunsu stabs Joy in the hand. Then Kaya Choi's goons pounced on him, and a fight broke out between them. Music. Byung and Han, who were waiting outside, they realize someone is informing the police. But before they can leave, Music, a number of Choi's goons arrive. Han attacks them with his men. Music Han, at this point, only wants to save Hansu's life. Hansu encounters a tall, broad man whom he attacks with an iron rod. However, the man is unaffected, and he beats Hansu to death. But Khan arrives just in time to save Hansu's life, and his gang eliminates Choi's goons. Music Hansu then beats Choi and snatches the stamp from him. Music, however, in the ensuing scuffle, Hansu breaks his watch, preventing further information from the police. Meanwhile, Manchol is very pleased with Hansu after receiving the stamp. Han then takes Hansu to a club to deal with the Russian mafia and asks him to wait outside, as he still doesn't fully trust him. While Hansu waits outside without questioning him, a man from his team pulls him into a corner and gives him a new tracking watch, which could provide solid evidence against Han. Just then, Han arrives and asks Hansu about the man. Hansu bluntly tells Han that he doesn't know who's harassing him. Han, enraged, begins beating the man. Hansu even has to drag him away to prevent him from killing him. As Han leaves, Han asks Hansu the truth about who the man was. Hansu honestly reveals that he was a spy who had come to give him the new tracking watch. Upon hearing this, Han arrests him and begins searching him to see if Hansu is still conspiring with the police. However, he finds no tracking device on Hansu. Han then takes Hansu to a secluded area, apologizes, and shares his pain with him. Han says that the only thing he's experienced throughout his life is betrayal from his own people. Even the man he's worked for 20 years wants to kill him, and that's why he finds it so difficult to trust anyone easily. Because Hansu becomes emotional again due to Hansu's words, he changes his mind, telling Han to trust him, saying he will never betray Han again and that he will win his complete trust. But the real game is about to begin. Just 2 days before the smuggling, Byung suddenly asked Han a question. How did he trust a policeman? Actually, Byung had already learned in prison that Hansu is a police detective who has come to capture Han, and Han had known about this long ago. So, he plotted a ruse and caused Hansu's mother to have an accident, weakening Hansu, which Han exploited wanted to help him and gain his trust. Hansu then revealed his true identity to him. Han hasn't killed him yet because Hansu is an honest and kind-hearted man, which is why Han has made him his right-hand man, someone he trusts to some extent. In this scene, we see Hansu visiting his mother's grave when suddenly some unknown men abduct him, pour kerosene on him, and tell Hansu that Han provided them with his information. Yesu is astonished at how Han could deceive him, but the truth is something else. These men weren't Han's men, but rather the police, who wanted to provoke him against Han, and their plan works. Hansu, enraged, tells Insuk about the smuggling operation that was scheduled to take place 2 days later. Hansu then asks Insuk about the true cause of his mother's death. Insuk knew Han was responsible for her mother's death, but she misleads him by saying that an investigation is underway, because if Hansu learns the truth, Insuk's mission could fail. Han then returns to meet Han. Seeing the injuries on his face, Han questions him, but Hansu remains completely silent. Finally, the day comes when Hansu, who was also involved in the smuggling operation, gives the police the address, allowing Insuk to reach the port with a large force and capture them naked. But as she begins to open the box, she discovers something else in the box instead of drugs. Laughter.
कुछ और मिलता है।
In fact, Hansu had connived with Han and had already dumped all the drugs into the sea. With no evidence, Insuk had no choice but to let them go. Manchol and Han then celebrate after the smuggling is complete. But when Manchol asks Han to pick up the alcohol, Han tells him that he doesn't drink with the dead. Before Manchol can understand anything, Han shoots Manchol dead for betraying him. Meanwhile, Insuk realizes that Hansu is still on Han's side. So he makes his final move, summoning Hansu and showing him video footage of her mother's accident, in which Han is clearly visible. Hansu is momentarily stunned. He can't believe the person he gave up everything for music. He betrayed the police. He vowed to win their trust. He, Sangeet, killed his world, his mother. Hansu realized he had made a grave mistake by befriending a gangster, Sangeet. He was also slowly getting sucked into the world of crime, instead of helping the law, Sangeet. So he took a drastic step, his sole purpose now being to help the law and eliminate his mother's murderer. Hansu immediately called Han Sangeet and lied, saying the police had found their hideout and were about to raid it. Therefore, Sangeet, they had to hide all their goods elsewhere tonight. Then, under police surveillance, Hansu arrived at Han's old hideout and met Han. Han told him they should give up illegal activities and start a new Sangeet life. Hansu replied, "You only know how to kill people, just like you killed my mother." Hearing this, Han realizes the police are on his side and points a gun at Hansu. But Hansu knew he wouldn't kill him because he would need to use Hansu as a pawn to escape. Suddenly, the police burst in, but they only see Hansu. Han sneaks up behind them and shoots them. But one of the policemen uses Hansu as a pawn and starts choking him, demanding that Han come out. Seeing Hansu in trouble, Han can't control himself and immediately comes out and kills the policeman. Han could have killed Hansu as well, but he didn't do so, and quietly left. But on the way, Insuk sees an opportunity and runs over Han with her car, and tries to find evidence of drugs in his pockets. But when she doesn't find any evidence in Han's pockets, she starts checking his car, Then Hansu arrives and shoots Insuk, believing that she was also responsible for his mother's death. Hansu then comes to Han, and remembering the last moments spent with him, tells him, that Han's friendship was just a lie, and that he only used him. Hansu was saying all this to Han, because after his mother, the only person he trusted was Han. After this, Hansu says a final goodbye to Han and closes his mouth and nose, causing his death. This is where our story ends, which was based on the friendship between an undercover agent and a gangster, from which we learn that we should not trust anyone easily because in today's world, the person we trust the most will break our trust. So, let's meet again with another powerful story. Take care, bye-bye.